Okay, so welcome to the Haki Yetu Communications and Visibility Information session. This is organized for the large grantees. And the idea for today is just to go through the guidelines briefly, to explain what we're looking for in all the different parts, and then to also give you the opportunity to ask any questions that may have come up from you going through the guidelines. So the agenda for today, we will give you a brief introduction to Haki Yetu. We will explain a little bit of the tone of voice and brand identity so that you know what is our objective. And then we will explain the communications and visibility requirements. We will give you some advice on how to use the logo in practice in the materials, whether printed or online materials. And then we will briefly tell you about the upcoming campaigns and how we collect impact stories. And as I said, at the end, we will have time for questions and answers. And sorry, I forgot to present myself. So my name is Annika Gorstowski. I work at the KIOS Foundation as a senior advisor in the East Africa program. So we'll start with a brief introduction to Haki Yetu. So the Haki Yetu is all about strengthening the capacity of county-based and grassroots civil society groups for enhanced governance, accountability, and protection of human rights of the people of Kenya. It is implemented by the CSO network, Inform Action, and the KIOS Foundation as the lead. It will be running for 4 years. So we started last year in 2023, and it will go up to 2026. And the components of the project are, so there are mainly two: the granting and capacity building. The large grant scheme through which you have received a grant, the rights, governance, and accountability grants, they are nationwide. As you know, the call was organized late last year. And then we have the small grant scheme, civic action and community empowerment grants. And that is focused in 15 target counties. The first call has already opened, and it's the call closed, but the grant process is ongoing, and there will be new calls later this year and next year. And then the capacity building component, which is for community, civic society organizations, journalists, and action groups. There are different areas in the capacity building. They include like the thematic areas of the Haki Yetu project, grant management, and organizational development overall. So the three main thematic areas that you've seen already during the call: democracy and rule of law, gender equality, non-discrimination, and business and human rights. And the objectives for Haki Yetu is to enhance good governance, promote rule of law and state accountability, fight against corruption, and strengthen access to justice. We also wish to enhance women's rights, work in the prevention of gender-based violence, promotion of inclusion, tolerance, and diversity, as well as sexual health and reproductive rights. And then with regards to business and human rights, to enhance environmental and climate justice and corporate accountability. So all of you are working in some of these areas through your projects. And then I will give over to Tim. He will be talking about the tone of voice and the Haki Yetu brand identity. Please, Tim, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and my name is Timothy Kimayo. I work with Inform Action Kenya. I support the communication component, and for this particular project, I will be supporting the comms and visibility. So, karibuni sana. We're going to have an info session, just an understanding of what we expect from you, and also be able to see what you also expect from us in return. So before I start, I believe that I am well informed that we have communications practitioners here, and I thought it's important for us to look at the tone of voice, how we are going to brand ourselves. And just to start with, the tone of voice, I have about 10 to about 15 minutes to take you through the tone of voice, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. So when you talk about the tone of voice, we're looking at, it's important to note the role that it plays, because we're looking at, looking at a communication that shapes and reflects a brand identity. And when we talk about brand identity, there's brand identity and there's brand image. So for the benefit of those who are not familiar with these jargons, so let me take a minute to just let you know what these vocabularies mean. So when you talk about the brand identity, we're looking at visible elements. So these are things like the logos, the colors, typography, things like the messages, things that people can see. And in this meeting today, I know that we come from different organizations. We have our logos, we have our colors, there's a way the typography of all those graphics, how we do our graphic design, how we portray ourselves, how people see us. So that is what we mean by brand identity. So this brand identity then reflects the values, personality, and purposes of that brand in every communication. So that is what it does. So, if you look at a certain logo, this is Haki Yetu. And for this particular case, if you look at the Haki Yetu, you see there's an orange color. If you look at that, the font of this Haki Yetu, it's unique in its way. So that is what we mean by brand identity. So it reflects now the purpose of that brand. And then when we talk about the brand image, there's now the brand image, which talks about how people perceive a brand. And this is brought about how people experience services. For instance, how people experience how let's say Haki Yetu works with the communities. For instance, we are currently in the coastal region, and we are training grassroots organizations, and how these grassroots organizations feel or maybe perceive, or how we carry ourselves, and the experiences that you get through some of these interactions also brings out that perspective about Haki Yetu. And when we look at Haki Yetu, this is rights, governance, and accountability projects for Kenyans. And if you translate Haki Yetu, it talks about rights are ours. So, what we are doing here is we are pushing for accountability. We want to enhance that there's that kind of, transparency even in the utilization of public resources. So, it's important to be able to link the tone of voices with what we want to achieve at the end of the day. So our tone of voice is friendly, not formal, but informative, to the point. So what we're doing here is we don't want to be very combative. We want to make sure that we are, friendly to our audiences. So we want to help and direct, enthusiastic, and avoid jargon and bureaucratic language. So the tone here is we just want to use a language that people can understand. So our tones of voices are inspirational, enthusiastic, encouraging, optimistic, credible, results-oriented, persevering, and then accountable. And also, we want to challenge and confront issues. So if you're talking about inspirational, maybe you can move to the next slide. What do we mean by being inspirational in our communication? So for this particular tone, I'm just giving you a few examples. For this particular tone, we are looking at a situation where we want to drive action and advocacy. So if you look at Haki Yetu, it's not just about informing people, but also about mobilizing them to take action. And taking action in many ways, either by exercising our democratic right as provided for in Article 37. There's the freedom of expression. There's those democratic principles. So that is what this brand Haki Yetu looks, wants to do. So, and then for this particular tone, so it should be inspirational. It should be able to, encourage people now to start taking action. So we can do this by either, asking people to, letting people know that together we can make governance work for us. You're trying to inspire people that this is possible. This can work. Like how Nairobi, I'm not so sure whether it has worked, but that is the kind of, tone that we want to use, that governance works for us. We need to protect the protests, stand up for your rights today. I don't know whether Occupy Parliament is the right one, but that is the kind of the tone that maybe we want to use for our communication. So we want to inspire people to drive action and advocacy. Our tone of voice should be trust, should be credible, and people can have, there's that confidence in how we communicate to people. People can now, not being in a situation where there's that deficit of confidence in how we do our things. So we have to establish ourselves as credible and trustworthy, especially in matters involving governance and accountability. As much as we want to push for, accountability, holding office holders accountable, then we have to make sure that we are trusted. So a fact-based, transparent, and accountable tone reinforces the brand's identity. So that is why I was saying that there's that direct relationship between the tone of voice and the brand's identity, so that we are reliable and honest as we advocate for the people. So demonstrating how rights are being protected or highlighting tangible outcomes builds the credibility needed for long-term engagement. So when discussing governance, the tone should clearly outline the project's successes, challenges, focusing on what has been achieved and what is still being worked on to show commitment and transparency. So for us to be able to achieve this kind of tone, I think while implementing our activities, what needs to come out clearly is we need to show people what we've done. And this can be through using the different tools, or perhaps the different social media platforms, by either taking good pictures, not just pictures, but very good pictures, shooting very nice videos and editing them. I know the communications people in this info session today, and you understand. So that is how we are able then to show that this is what we've been able to achieve, and then tell them that this is what we're working on at the moment, and we are still committed to making sure that we achieve what we want to achieve at the end of the 4-year project, or maybe 1-year project. So, but maybe before I look at, before I give the next presenter, maybe I can just mention a few things here. There's one thing that is very important, especially in terms of how we communicate, because again, that trust is built with time. This is a project that we just started, like, let's say 1.5 years ago, and for us to be able to build that credibility, for people to have faith and confidence in us, especially even when doing the sub-granting and so on, I think we need to be very factual and be able to use maybe data or research. For instance, let me give an example. I know that my colleague is going to speak about our next campaign that is coming up, is the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. What are some of the factual, what are some of the data that we're publishing? We did the Haki Yetu data baseline study. What are some of the results? What are some of the numbers that came from that baseline? What are some of the challenges? Give people numbers, give people real examples that this is how the situation was, so that you're able to communicate, or maybe you are able to show the progress that you're making. So for instance, if you're talking about your trainings, or perhaps the activities that you're doing at the community level. Maybe we can talk about, according to our let's say our study, or maybe our activity that was conducted in a place like Kilifi County. We had about 30 participants, 40 participants who joined. And this is, if you look at the impact, this is what we've been able to see in the past 1 year or so. So giving that fact, so maybe giving people real examples, then builds that credibility for this particular project. So again, there's that aspect of now showcasing what we have achieved so far, so that you're able to build confidence. For example, again, regularly highlighting milestones. I think one of the things that we really wanted to do, especially with now that you started now implementing your activities, and some of you are yet to start, is be able to highlight what you've been able to achieve, highlighting those milestones and even success metrics. For instance, we're talking about, let's say, Siasa Place, for instance. Siasa Place has received these funds. What does this mean for Siasa Place? What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? And then at the end of that 1 year project also, what were you able to achieve? Then we're able to use what people can see to just, measure our performance, and tell that we've been able to achieve what we wanted to achieve at the end of the day. So that is basically what that tone of voice means for this particular project. So with that understanding, then I believe that we'll be able to work together, we'll be able to support each other, even when coming up with our strategies, social media strategies. I know that is a primary mode of communication, and particularly for Haki and Yetu. Then how do we ensure that communication, there's that link between Haki and Yetu with what you guys are implementing on the ground. So with those few remarks, if the questions, I believe there's an opportunity to ask questions, so I'll be available. But for now, let me hand the microphone to Anika. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. That was very, very insightful and important information. Now we will go on to the visibility requirements, and the idea is to give you the instructions of when to use the logos. So, as a general principle, you are beneficiaries of the EU funding through the Haki and Yetu project. This means that your organization is in an obligation to communicate and raise EU visibility with regards to this project and the work you are implementing with this grant. So overall, throughout the implementation, most of you will be implementing for 12 months. Some may have a little shorter period. Anything you communicate about the projects and its activities, it builds EU's visibility in Kenya. And that is a requirement for EU funding. We're here to support you. So we have a communications team. Tim from IFA, who just spoke, is leading the communications team, but we have also Shadrach from CSO Network, who will be speaking briefly, and from KIOS Comsta. So the comms team is to support you, and we're proud of you and of your work as our Haki and Yetu grantees. So we also want to give visibility and communicate your work and amplify the voices of our grantees. So we're always available for guidance, so you can reach out to the Haki and Yetu comms team. And overall, the obligation is to communicate and support the EU visibility, but I will tell you there may be some exceptions to this. As a general rule, examples of when you should use the logo. So the EU emblem, the Haki Yetu logo, and the KIOS Foundation logo. So here are some examples, just to give you an idea. Any display panels, any plaques, supplies, equipment, any banners. I know some of you have already printed or about to produce banners. Any publications, this could be either physical, in paper or online, flyers, leaflets or posters that have to do with the grant. So that have everything that has to do, all materials that are related to the project that you're implementing with the Haki Yetu grant. What comes to digital assets, they can be web pages if you publish information about the project, any visuals, infographics, any videos you produce as part of the project, social media content, stationery if that's the case and the project title is mentioned. And then when you organize any training or events, be it physical or online like we are today, if there are no banners or roll-ups visible, then we ask you to mention the EU funding in the opening of the event. And I know some of you have already asked about this. So for example, with regards to social media content, if you organize an event and you publish photos, it's not necessary to add the logos into each photo you publish. On social media, you can mention the project name and the EU funding, but it's not necessary for you to add to each photo you publish the logos. But if you design, for example, a flyer of an upcoming event or a past event, like a poster kind of, be it online or physical, then we ask you to add the logos. We will go deeper to the logo use, and you can see examples and about tagging on social media later as we go on. But I just want to state here that the grant funds cannot be used for purchasing materials or printing materials that are not in the original budget or that have not been agreed. So these are examples. Some of you may have included this in the budget, some of you may have not, but this is not for guidance of what you can use, but just of what you can do with the fund, but just an example for the ones that have already included this in the budget. There can be exceptions. So as I said, the requirement is to give visibility and communicate the EU funding, but we understand that there may be special circumstances. It could be the type of work, the type of action, the type of beneficiary. So we really do not want to put anyone at risk, whether it's your staff, a member of your organization, or any of your beneficiaries. So always discuss derogations. Feel free to contact the KIOS contact person. For you all at the moment, it is me. If you need to discuss any visibility, any derogations to the visibility requirements. So we always value more, of course, your safety and than the visibility. And then you have here the EU standard disclaimer. So in the communications and visibility guidelines, you can see all the different versions, but it's important to include the disclaimer, for example, in publications or reports when you print or publish anything online. Just this is in the guidelines, but just to note on the legal and ethical considerations. So please note to use the logos with respect and integrity. As you have signed in the contract agreement, you cannot use the logos as endorsement of political parties, political action, partisan activities, or in campaigns for candidates. It is also required for you to state correctly that that you don't give the impression or assumption of direct connection between your work and the EU So that's why the emblem, the EU funding emblem, says funded by the EU, but it doesn't mean that that there is a direct connection, or that your work or kind of opinions are the EU's voice, or KIOS or the Haki Yetu project. So please use the logos in a way that it's clear that the EU, KIOS and Haki Yetu are the funders and not the implementers, for example. And then we ask you not to use the logos in a way that misleads the public or misrepresents the mission and values of Haki Yetu. So as you have seen about the tone of voice, it gives you an idea of the values that we want to promote. And please note the use of the EU emblem is not allowed in connection with any objective or activity which is incompatible with the principles of the EU and Council of Europe. So this is in the guidelines. If you have any questions, again, please write an email, but this is just a basic consideration to take into account. We will go on to logo use in practice. So I will give the floor to Shadrach. Shadrach, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Annika. I believe I'm audible enough. Confirm that you're able to hear me. Yeah. My name is Shadrach from CSO Network. And as Annika was mentioning, I just want to pick it from there and continue with the logo use in practice, and so that we can be able to do this seamlessly. I believe as the communication guys, you've been running projects, and this is not a new thing, but it's just more of an emphasis to what you've been doing, so that we ensure that everything is in order. So one of the issues is when you talk about the logo use, just as part of the general principle is this, that whenever we are using this logo for activity, for the banners or for whatever kind of material that you're producing, we need to ensure that the logos are in a place that is visible and prominent in all our materials. And I believe this is in a place where people can be able to easily see it and not in a hidden place. And one of the key things also as we talk about this is that as you're working on your materials, kindly do ensure that you do not alter, distort, or modify the logos. Because when you'll be looking at the links that we've provided with you, those logos should just be used in a way that they are. And that's why you've received quite a number of the different versions of the logo that perhaps we believe you might need to use or might be able to be used with whatever material that you want to prepare. So kindly do not alter, distort, or modify the logos. And I believe that that sometimes you see that the logo has been compressed in a way that it has been distorted. So kindly just use the logo in a way that it remains in its original version. And with that, we continue to say that ensure that the logos are used consistently across all the media platforms, all the platforms and media. So don't ensure that there's consistency in terms of the use of the logos. And one of the things also that we want to bring out is the respect to the visual identity guidelines and placement of logos, as we've been able to explain in the guidelines. We're just here to emphasize this, but I believe you've been able to receive the guidelines, and these are things that have been able to be outlined there specifically and very keenly. So kindly adhere to the guidelines, and as Annika mentioned, in case you've got any question or anything that you believe you want some clarity on it, you can be able to share your thoughts and your views, and then you'll be able to see how to respond to you. There's also the bit of provide a hyperlink to the KIOS website when you use the logo online. Let's say you're using this logo in one of the, maybe in your website, you've got a web page or for the project that you're running, and you've put there the KIOS logo, the Haki Yetu logo. So we'll request you that as you do that, and there's a Haki Yetu landing page that will be coming up soon, we'll be sharing with you. So anytime you're putting this logo there, make sure that you hyperlink the logo in a way that when someone clicks the logo, it can be able to redirect them to the Haki Yetu, to the KIOS page, and particularly to the Haki Yetu landing page. And I believe that will be in order. We have specific requirements that are related to the EU visibility. And one of these things is that previously the EU, we could just use the EU emblem, but there's an additional, I think, to the latest version of the EU communication guideline that was brought about in 2022. And this states that anytime you're using the EU emblem, you make sure that it's accompanied by the funding statement, and the funding statement is funded by the European Union. And so in whatever activity that you're using, the EU logo, kindly ensure that it's accompanied by funded by the European Union. I'm not sure in this case if we've got some of the activity perhaps that will be co-funding, but I believe in the projects that you're running, because it's not co-funded projects, you just need to use the funded by the European Union. That is the emblem together with the funding statement for all the materials that we are producing. When you talk about this, the EU emblem must be at least the same size as the biggest of other logos. So kindly ensure that anytime you're using the EU in your materials, you make sure that you've not made it to be very small, but it should be of the same size. We've provided you with the European Union, the link to where you can be able to find the EU logos. There are different versions of it. There's the horizontal version and the vertical version. The version that you're seeing here is the EU funded by the European Union, the EU emblem with the funding statement on the right side of the emblem, and that is the horizontal version that you're talking about. But when you'll be able to look at the link that we've provided with you in the guidelines, on the EU, you'll be able to find on the EU emblem, you'll be able to find there are different versions of it. There are some that you'll find the funding statement is appearing at the bottom, and that is the vertical version of it. So depending on the material that you're producing, but we advise that since the Haki Yetu logo is more of horizontal oriented, you can be able to use also the funding statement in such a manner. But in case you find that to be a bit difficult with your materials, then you can be able to use the ones provided through the link, and you can be able to use it in a way that you ensure that it's of the same size and as the biggest of all. And this is just to ensure that it's visible and it's prominently coming out. And one of the things also we want to say is that place the EU emblem and the KIOS logo at a distance from your own logo. And that's why you see some of the samples that we've provided with you there, because we do not want you to crowd all the logos together. Or unless maybe you're working on a straight band or something, but if possible for the materials, you can put your logo perhaps maybe at the top of maybe, let's say, the poster that you're creating, or whichever place that you find to be, depending on the design of what you're designing, in a very, but at least at a distant place, and then you make sure that the EU and the KIOS logo are somehow close together, maybe at the bottom or whichever place that you'll find to be very much relevant. And we've provided with you some of the examples on how they can be able to appear at the bottom, at the guidelines, and also here as they can be able to appear here as you can be able to see. The KIOS and the Haki Yetu logo come in different versions and different colors. We've got the KIOS logo that is available in brick red color, black, and in white color. And the reason why we are giving you these different versions of the logo is because we know that based on the materials that you'll be working with, perhaps maybe the brick red color might not work well, or the black color might not, or the white color might not. So you are able to pick the color that you believe is convenient for your use. And all of these logos have been provided at when you click on the link that is provided, maybe just at the bottom there. But if you look at the guidelines, you'll also be able to find the link where both of these logos can be downloaded, and you can be able to pick whichever version that works for you and the material that you are designing. And as it has just been highlighted, that is the link. I believe at the end of this session, we'll be able to share with you this, and thanks Anika has been able to share it at the chat box. But also when you look at the guidelines, you'll be able to see them there. Also for the Haki Yetu logo, it comes in different colors. It comes in red, orange, and white. And also we have some that are having the background and with the slogan in black or white. And the slogan is a rights, governance, and accountability project for Kenyans. Ensure that anytime you're using the Haki Yetu logo, it has that, it has got that slogan also in place, so that you don't just use the Haki Yetu logo on its own, just the Haki Yetu as the word, but also it comes with the with that slogan at the bottom of it, so that you can be able to use it wherever you want to use it. And also provided with you the links to download the EU emblem. One is at the link provided there at the top. All versions of the emblem can be downloaded there. So you will just click at the link and then you'll be able to be taken to the site and you'll be able to check out the one that you want. And then for more details, because we believe we cannot be able to exhaust everything here on how you can be able to use the EU emblem, and we want to advise you that if possible, kindly familiarize yourself with the instructions provided in terms of the color fonts and everything in regards to what the EU wants whenever you're communicating or you're doing any communication with their emblem on. Kindly visit that link provided there. Also, I insist this link is on the guidelines. Please kindly be able to check out, familiarize yourself with what they've provided there, so that as we work, as we do the project and as we run for this 1 year where we're going to implement this project, we can be able to implement it in a way that it's needed by the EU. One of the things is, as we work through this, as we implement this project, the Haki Yetu project will be running some key campaigns. And as we do these campaigns, also we'll be working on the impact stories. What are some of the things that we can be able to say are the success stories, or what are some of the things that we can say that we've been able to learn for this period? And it's important that you also be able to know what we expect from you and what are you expecting from us during this period. Now, in regards to the campaigns, there's one of the things that we call the joint campaigns, which are free, and we are running them annually, each campaign coming once in a year. And one of these campaigns are highlighted based on the different thematic areas that they fall into. For example, we've got the World Environment Day that comes on June 5th, and this is key in highlighting the environmental issues, business and human rights, and this falls under the business and human rights thematic component, and it's key on advocating for environmental justice. And so during these campaigns, you'll be expected also to be taking part in it, and we'll be able to share with you on how you can be able to take part in them and how you'll be able to work with it. In regards to the component of the democracy and rule of law, we've got the Katiba Day, and as you know very well that the Constitution of Kenya was promulgated on August 27, and we chose that day as a day that we can be able to focus on democracy and rule of law. And so it's Katiba Day, and it's a place where we run the campaigns both on ground and online. And as the grantees of the Haki Yetu, you're also expected to take part in either of these campaigns, depending on where the project that you're running and the thematic focus where it falls. There's an upcoming campaign, the 16 days of gender activism, that runs from November 25th to December 10th. And this is key on raising the awareness on women's rights and gender-based violence, which is also part of the thematic focus of this project. So as the organizations that we are here, I believe some of us, we've been involved in these campaigns. I believe we've been running these campaigns. And this is not a new thing. And just to emphasize to us that as we do this as the Haki Yetu team, we'll also be expecting you to be able to join us in these campaigns. And we expect you, like, for example, the 16 days of gender activism, we are still in the planning process, but once everything has been finalized, we'll be sharing with you and asking you, if possible, you can be able to join on board and be able to take part in this campaign, both on ground and online for the 16 days. During these campaigns, these are some of the things that perhaps we expect from you, or we invite you to join and do. Because I believe as I mentioned earlier, we all fall during this project that we're implementing falls in the different thematic areas. So during these campaigns, we invite you that you can be able to share campaign messages on social media, create different messages that you can be able to do and share it during the campaign period, produce content for online campaigns, if possible, do some videos, do some infographics. As Tim was mentioning earlier, you can share with us some data, perhaps maybe, for example, for the 16 days, you can share some of the data, like where have we been in terms of progress? Are we progressing? Are we not progressing? What's happening? So that in a way that as we do this, and as Tim mentioned, in terms of the tone of voice, it's inspirational and advocating for people to take action in all these things. So we invite you to share the campaign messages on social media through your different social media platforms, and also produce content for online, produce videos, produce infographics, share them. And also, if possible, because whenever we run the online campaigns, we also have the on-ground campaigns. If possible, if you can be able to join for the on-ground activities, maybe in your different counties, or perhaps maybe in the different areas that you're implementing these activities, you're implementing the project, you can be able to join the on-ground activities and also be able to share out more so that you can be able to bring change. As we do produce the content, one of the key things that comes about is the Data Protection Act. And one of the key things we want to emphasize is that anytime you're taking photos or videos and any kind of work that you're doing that involves data collection or data that can be someone's personal data, it's important that we get the consent. And we want to say that some of the photos and the videos that we'll be producing, we are going to publish them. And we're going to publish them perhaps on our social media platforms also, or on the landing page. And for us to publish whatever photo that you've shared with us or whatever video that you've shared with us, we must be able to see the consent so that we avoid issues arising from consent. So as we shall be sharing these photos, one of the things that we want to mention is that we must be able to give you credit for whatever work that you've done. We shall be able to share the photos, and perhaps you'll be able to share down there that this photo, we must be able to give you that photo credit, that this was photos taken by let's say it was taken by Siasa Place, or it was taken by Muhuri or Retizen, so that it can be able to feature there, and perhaps if possible even the name of the person who took the photo, so that we give you the credit to your photo and we don't just use it without giving you credit for what you've done. And as I mentioned earlier, that consent must always be obtained for recognizable images or personal data. And for minor, please, parental consent is required. For minors, make sure that you be able to provide parental consent. If you look at the guideline that we've provided with you, there's a sample of the consent form there. You can be able to use it that way, and I believe maybe some of us in our different organizations, we've got the different consent forms that maybe we're using. You can be able to compare and see if it captures everything. If not, maybe you can be able to write to us, and then we can be able to see how we can be able to help around. But ensure that you provide, you get consent before you take pictures or before you share any images or personal data. There was a question I believe that was shared, and I just want to tackle this as we progress in terms of maybe you're having an event and there are a lot of people and maybe you're taking photos. So we don't expect you maybe to just go and share maybe consent to everybody to sign and say that they've consented maybe for you to take their photo. But in the registration list that you're having, in the registration list that where people will be registering, perhaps you can provide a column as people write their names, their maybe phone numbers, email, or whatever. Also provide a column where they can be able to have the photo consent, where someone can be able to tick and say that, yes, I consent to you taking photos. And I believe these are something that most of us we've been doing here in Kenya since the Data Protection Act, so that as they come into the meeting, they register, they're able to provide that, yes, they're consenting to take photos. And you'll be explained to them, don't just allow them to tell them just tick here, but explain to them what it means, most especially in public events, so that someone can be able to understand what are they ticking. They don't just tick for the sake of it. And if someone feels maybe they don't want their photos to be captured, make sure that you don't take the photos of those people. Maybe you can set them aside or provide them something that can be able to identify that these people don't want to be their photos taken, and they be placed aside so that you don't capture their photos to avoid issues at a later stage. And one of the things is also the EU has a right to use communication and visibility material provided under the Haki Yetu project. So you can be sure that any material you're producing, and that's why we are very keen in terms of the quality of the material that you have to produce. Because at any point, let's say you produced a video on something, the EU might want to use it, and they have a right to use any of those communications. So, produced under the Haki Yetu project. So we just want to emphasize on that. So as you produce the materials, it will be very important that you produce high quality materials so that it can be used. We mentioned earlier about the stories of change, because we believe as we are working on this project, there's a place we are looking at result at the end of the day. And that is in terms of the stories of change. So as we implement this project, one of the things that we are looking forward to doing as the communication team of the Haki Yetu, and I believe this is also in line with you guys as the communication team for your own organizations where you're coming from, is on the stories of change. So whatever project that you're implementing, we are looking forward to documenting the progress that has happened. And that's why we are saying that at some point we'll be doing the interviews on human rights interest stories, things that perhaps you've been able to achieve, what you've been able to do. Maybe let's say there's some of the human rights violations that were taking place, but through the interventions of the projects that you're running, there's progress that has been made. So we will be looking forward to coming and documenting those stories, the impact stories, the stories of change, so that we can be able to share them out as an inspiration also to others to be able to take action, and also as a way of showing what we've been able to achieve through the project that you're implementing. So you can be sure that at some point we'll be coming to be able to document some of those stories so that we can be able to share them. And these stories will be shared on the KIOS website and the landing page, and also across the different social media platform of either Inform Action, CSO Network, or KIOS. And at some point, which will be decided by case to case, depending on how it will be, we might also be able to invite the mainstream media so that they can be able to come and document some of these success stories. So as you will be working on as you'll be implementing the project, and maybe you feel there's something very important here that you believe we can be able to document, don't hesitate to reach out to us, maybe on your own from your own organization, or if you feel that you need any support from us in terms of documenting, you can be able to reach out to us, and then we can be able to see how we can be able to assist, or how we can be able to come on board and document some of these stories. When we were talking about the photo crediting, as you can see in the photo aside there, that photo Inform Action Kenya, that's what I mentioned, and that's what I meant when I was talking about photo crediting. So anytime you'll be taking photos and maybe want to use it, we must be able to give you credit, and that's what I meant with that. So we are looking forward to seeing some of these success stories and how we can be able to document them and bring them to the limelight. And as you do, and this is just maybe bringing us to the close of this presentation, and as you do any communication, any kind of communication that maybe you're sharing perhaps on your social media platforms, always remember to tag the EU in Kenya. And if possible, the EU in Kenya, remember to tag the EU in Kenya. Remember to tag KIOS Foundation. Remember to tag the CSO Network and the Inform Action through their Twitter handle or their different handles. Maybe you're doing it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever platforms. You can be able to find some of these, our social media pages, and you can be able to tag us, or to be able to tag the links provided there, so that we can be able to retweet, and we can be able also maybe to just share it across, so we can be able to know that this and this is happening, just so that we can be able to be informed as we do these things. So kindly remember to tag, and for any communication and visibility, anything that you require, maybe perhaps there's some clarification you need, or that you have any question, or there's something you want to share with us, kindly remember to use the Haki Yetu comms at kios.fi, and we'll be able to receive it, and we'll be able to share back to you any feedback or anything perhaps that will be able to give you guidance. And for other grant related issues, please contact Anika at kios.fi, and he'll be able to share with us. That's it from my end, and I'm looking forward to a very great time working with us. I'm looking forward to a very good time implementing this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shadrach, for all this great advice and information about the campaigns and logo use. I would like to take this opportunity to maybe just respond briefly a few questions that came by email before this session. So some of them we already responded. One had to do with the logos, like when you share images from your activities on social media, it's not compulsory to add the logos in each photo. It is advisable to mention that the activity was part of the project that you're implementing with the EU funding, but just use your not imagination, but just use your kind of consideration of how to inform. So if it's a press release, if it's an article, if it's a news piece, you can just write in the end that it is funded by the EU, or if it's not possible to add the logos in the image, then you can mention it. And if you have any questions, just write an email and as Shadrach said, tag us so that we can also share your communication pieces. So always remember that when communicating about your project on social media. Then about the media consent form, so I believe Shadrach answered that question very well. So the most important thing is in the guidelines, you can find the example for the consent form, so you can use that as it is or adjust it to your needs. But the most important thing is that the persons that appear recognizably in images or videos or are interviewed, they should sign the consent form. For minors, it should be the parent or guardian, legal guardian, and yes, when you organize a training or like a forum, just in the participation list, you can add the permission to appear in photos so that you don't have to get an individual consent form when organizing a training or bigger event. If you create media for the joint campaigns, so as Shadrach told you, we have the 3 annual campaigns. One of the questions was, when you create media for the campaigns, do you need to share the materials with us prior to their publication? It is not necessary to share everything or each publication with us. You can spontaneously participate in the campaign. Always before the campaigns, we will give you information about the upcoming campaigns, materials that you can use, and ideas. Also for us to collect ideas from you, what kind of materials to create or messages to make. So you can just join the campaign more spontaneously with participating or resharing. But if you would like to give us your materials so that we can use them in the campaign, then we encourage you to share them prior to the start of the campaign, so we are prepared and have the information. About the placement of logos, we received questions about t-shirts. So if in your grant budget you have foreseen the purchase of t-shirts for this Haki Yetu funded project, then the logo should also be included in the t-shirt if it mentions the project name and it's used through the project. About the logo use, remember to kind of distance your logo and the funders' logo. So the funders' logos being the EU, Haki Yetu, and KIOS. And please, if you're unsure how to place them, just write us an email, and we will be, as I said, we're here to support you, and our comms team will guide you on how to best go about your plans. So I believe those were all the questions we had received prior to this session. I don't see any questions in the chat. Please, if any of you would like to open your mic and ask anything with regards to communications and visibility, please raise your hand and go ahead. But we have come to the end of our presentation. And as I wrote in the chat, we will be sharing the guidelines. I know maybe not all of you have received them. We have sent it to the prior contact person in your organization. So I will share the guidelines after this session with all of you who have registered and are online, and also this PowerPoint presentation. That the information is the same, but it's just a different way of presenting.
And then Annika, maybe just something I forgot to mention as we maybe wait for them to share the questions. Anytime maybe you're doing your videos, kindly remember the do no harm approach. If possible, maybe let's say you are doing some videos for survivors or for maybe someone, in as much as maybe you've been able to obtain their content and they're not very much okay with you sharing their face or something that can be able to identify them, kindly remember either to blur or to block or to distort the voice in a way that you're not able to expose this person. Don't remember the do no harm approach. So I think it was important that we can be able to mention that, so that as we progress, in case you want to do something, ensure that that is in place. Yeah, that's it.
Great addition. Thank you, Shadrach. Very important. I see no questions. I see no hands. So I believe everything has been super clear. We've been successful in explaining the guidelines, I say, with the colleagues. So thank you all for your participation, and please drop us an email if anything is unclear or you need guidance, and we're here to help you and looking forward to working together.